everyone. My name is Nick. I'm on the Vancouver Startup Week team this year for Vancouver Startup Week. And before we begin, I'd just like to take a moment to acknowledge that we are grateful to be virtually gathered here today on Indigenous land, regardless of where you're joining us from. I'm grateful to be on the traditional unceded territories of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish peoples. Unceded means these territories were never handed over, sold, or given up by these nations. And currently we are situated on occupied territories. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us here today for Vancouver Startup Week 2021, and welcome to the session. Even startups need legal advice. Don't wait until problems arise. Hosted by Kornfeld LLP. If you have any questions for our speakers, please post them in the Q&A on the session, and you can upvote any questions that you think are particularly relevant. So I'll now pass the mic over to Nils, and we'll begin the session.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks for all your help on this. It's been a great experience for me so far, my first time at Vancouver Startup Week. A quick chat, just 30 minutes. I think basically trying to get to, everyone who's signed in an idea to talk to a lawyer. We're not here to help you communicate with anyone. We're not here to invest in your projects, but we're a firm in Vancouver that represents a lot of different clients. I'm a litigator myself, but there's a whole floor of us here that do all sorts of things with startups. And my hope is to encourage each of you to consult with counsel at different stages of your startups to avoid problems and to hopefully maximize your success. All lawyers have to do a PowerPoint. It's required in our laws. We'll see if I can actually get it done or show stuff here. I'm not sure if anyone sees anything. Nick, do you see my slide? Now you're blank, but just give me the thumbs up if you do.
Sorry. Yes, I can see it, but we see all of the notes as well. So you might want to go into the full screen.
All right, thanks.
Display settings.
Let's find that one, even though I probably don't have any notes in there. Oh, there we go. Let's see.
Might be display settings at the top.
Thanks, Nick. Swap presenter. No.
Yeah, that looks like it.
Does that look better? Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
So just come talk to lawyers about partnership agreements. I'm again a litigator, and what I see is people who haven't done this and are then having big litigation at the end. If you've had a relationship that you might have had a breakup, you didn't expect it to be a breakup. If you're entering into a partnership with someone, take the time to consult with counsel about getting a partnership agreement. They can be quite expensive, or they can be not too bad, depending on the amount of detail, the amount of complicated things that are involved. Incorporation, it's going to run you, at least at this time in Vancouver, around $1,000, $1,200 to incorporate a company, maybe a further $400 or $500 a year to have a law firm keep your books and records for you. These are the foundations of your company. You're creating a child, if you will, that you hope is going to grow your corporation to become a great thing. And I think it's important to put in the effort to make sure that it's properly set up from the outset. Are you going to have shareholders beyond yourself? Then you have to determine how many shares are being allocated to different persons, who's keeping control, and what the shareholder agreements are. Are you leasing space? Then perhaps you want a lawyer to take a look at that lease. Non-disclosure agreements. If you are involved in proprietary tech, then you're going to be working with people working on your business, your technology, your idea. Do you want them to have a signature on a document somewhere that prevents them from just running off with it themselves? I think the answer is obviously yes. And I hope you take the time to speak with counsel about your project and about what your goals are, so you can work with that counsel, whoever it may be, to bring your idea along with the right settings from the start. Data security provisions often underutilized with consultants. Not all of us can do everything in our startups. We need help. We need expertise. We need coding. We need sales. We need all sorts of different people to work with on our projects. And while I don't say that any of them are bad people, some of them end up having a different point of view about what their work is worth or who owns the work or the idea from the outset. Are you one of these companies that collects and stores personal data? If so, you may have privacy compliance issues that you need to understand before you go down that road. If you don't fully understand what your obligations are nationally or perhaps internationally, that can cause you a big headache. So look into it early. Just a simple thing about naming the band, if you will, can cause people some issues. Some people think that just reserving a business name when you're registering or incorporating is enough, and don't understand the concept of prior use or active use. So you may want to research your market to figure out what name you might use and ensure it's unique. And you may want to go as far as registering a trademark for your company. If you're hiring staff, then your employment agreement doesn't have to be probably too complex. But if you're hiring consultants or special employees, someone perhaps to handle all your sales, then we recommend talking to counsel with experience in the area to come up with a more robust agreement to make sure it complies with various Employment Standards Act, for example, but also that it's drafted in such a way so that it's a win-win for both sides. We see startups that sometimes fail to consider proper confidentiality clauses, proper non-solicitation clauses, or non-competes. By proper, I mean sometimes they're very broad, and in fact too broad, and might not be upheld by the courts. So we also have some corporate solicitors who work with startups on equity financing. Again, I'm a litigator. I see things after they explode, but it's funny, I'm here encouraging you to try to take steps to ensure that they don't explode, or if they do, to make my job a lot easier. If you're entering into equity financing, the people with the money probably have counsel on their side. I think you should probably talk to someone too to discuss what your options are and how to approach it. And talking with some of my colleagues here at Kornfeld, they commented that they sometimes see startups tend to give up control too early on in equity financing. Litigation, that's my bag. What you're doing now, if you're at an early stage, perhaps talking with a partner about starting a company, could end up in litigation 10, 20 years, 5 years down the road. Document retention is important. Keep your emails and your notes. If you're going to come to agreement, hopefully you're going to have a partnership agreement in place. There's all sorts of catchphrases out there for different, letters of intention or founding letters or all sorts of terms I've heard bandied about, but take the time to consult with a lawyer, get things written down properly, get things agreed properly and signed up. In litigation later, if someone claims, hey, it was my idea, not his idea or her idea, turning to the emails that you saved, the text messages you took screenshots of, the signed agreements that you have can really help you fend off that kind of argument years from now. And again, no one expects a breakup. Sometimes just breakups happen. So as far as one of the things that popped off in my head, I've been involved in a bunch of litigation lately regarding just simple things like signing a contract. We have, see it on TV, signing a contract. How complicated can it be? Well, here's some best practices from my point of view. Get a copy of it in advance, of course. You should sign it probably at a lawyer's office. You should have a witness with you. Sign it with blue ink, please. Lawyers love blue ink because when we photocopy something and it comes up blank ink, we can tell it's not an original. Have your witness also use blue ink. Date the contract on the date that you signed. even though the contract itself might have a different date as to when it is in place. I like to encourage my clients to initial each page and to have the other party who's also signing the contract initial each page. If you want to strike out a paragraph or change a word, do that change and then also put your initials next to the handwritten change, and have the other side do that too. Later on then, if we're having litigation about the contract, we can see the date it was signed, who the witness was, and that each party initialed each page and any handwritten changes. It prevents any party from pulling out one page and replacing it with another, which I've actually seen quite a few times. And it makes sure everyone is on the up and up. After you've signed it, you shouldn't leave without a copy of the contract in your hand, and neither should the other party. But if you're signing it at a law firm and the law firm holds the original, that's probably a good idea. Let me try to get out of this thing and talk to some people with some actual questions. I'll try to go back to our Q&A portion. No open questions. Okay, somebody's going to have to fire me something. What have I got? I spoke with Alex the other day. I think he was listening in from Hong Kong, and he mentioned that he had felt that hiring practices had changed a lot in Canada in his absence. He asked me to comment on some of that. I think he might be listening in later to the recorded session. I don't think, subject to what anyone else thinks, I don't think hiring has changed all too much in the last 20 years or so, how long I've been litigating. Certainly there is a great movement towards hiring more diverse people, and that's good. I think the question I got in advance was more, are we obligated to hire certain people over others? And I don't think that's ever going to be the case. Certainly if you don't hire someone with a disability just because they're disabled, that's not good. Or if you don't hire someone just because of the basis of their skin color, that's not good. But hopefully we've all recommended or recognized now that hiring diverse people, hiring people different than yourself is actually a plus and not a negative. Litigators see the back end of it. We see family businesses collapsing and everyone fighting amongst themselves. We see startups that have done poorly, that are falling apart, and people suing themselves trying to get their initial investment back. And we see startups that have done well that people are suing to try to get a piece of the pie. I think you have to hope that your project, your baby, if you will, is going to do really well. And if you have that faith in your project, then take the time to talk to counsel. If you view a lawyer or lawyers as a part of your team, I think they can help build your startup with you. I've seen many startups become functioning businesses and they end up realizing, they're paying too much for legal, so they simply hire the lawyer away to become their in-house counsel, and that seems to be the progression. But that future in-house counsel of yours is probably working at a law firm right now somewhere, maybe or maybe not, and you need to consult with him or her to make sure you're building your company well. I hope you have a partnership agreement if you're working with someone else. If you're hiring people to work on your things, I hope you have non-disclosure agreements. And if you're giving away the farm, working with other people, then you might consider non-competes for a while afterwards so that people don't take your ideas and run with them. Everything else is out there for you. This appears to be an interesting time for startups, and at least according to some people, quite a bit of investor money out there for different people to build things. Just a caveat that they are business people. They are looking to find ideas at a initial stage, make investments and make a lot of money off of them. I'm sure there are some people out there doing it out of the goodness of their heart, but I haven't met them yet. So, you know, treat everything with a grain of salt. Ask lawyers about agreements you're being offered. Recognize the first offer may not be the only offer, and build from there. I'm going to start picking on people individually like I used to do when I was a teacher if I don't get some questions soon. So let's see what we have. Alan, do you have any questions? I see Alan Huang is out there. Any questions of a legal nature?
It looks like we have a question in the chat here from Robert.
Okay.
Compliance and storing sensitive / private information. Other than using encryption, various security techniques to ensure the data is properly secured in the application, what needs to be done from a legal point of view?
Well, I mean, certainly encryption is more of a business point of view. You know, you want to save your work, if you will, back up your files is the standard thing. I know one guy who's working on a platform called Wire that's a fairly highly encrypted basis, but there is no, I'm a litigator, so there is no absolute right or wrong way to approach it. Now, I just want, if you end up in litigation later and then I want all the documents. I want your notes. I want your emails. I want your texts. I want the work you did. I want to be able to learn who did what and why their claim for, 50% of your company is bogus. How you go about saving that stuff, from my point of view, isn't critical, just that it is saved in some fashion. So if you're working on a platform with somebody, where is that information stored? How is it saved? How can you get it back 2, 5, 10 years from now? Can it be deleted by the other party, or do you just have that aspect? Now, if you're working on something that has sort of a compliance aspect, however, that you have to abide by certain national or international rules for how you gather and maintain records, that's a totally different matter. And I would defer to counsel on the other side of my office, if you will, on that. So if you have specific questions regarding that, then I encourage you to speak to counsel on the compliance issues. But if you just have sort of a general question on, how should I be saving things, my answer is you should be saving things twice and back them up, because if you end up in litigation later and you have everything, that puts you in such a stronger position than anyone else. How about some other things? I'm not sure why I can't see my chat, Nick, but I'll keep trying it. Oh, now I see some stuff. Okay, so I hope that helps you, Robert. And I know Robert and I were talking earlier about his tech use in law, so that's kind of interesting. As far as other legal things, I know this is a quick snapshot, but we have about 10 minutes, so I hope you have some questions. Nick, fire me a name and I'm going to pick on somebody. There it is.
The name from we have. How about Norman?
What about you, Nick? What are your legal views? I know I'm just on the spot here, but are you working on anything startup-y?
Not really in particularly right now. I'm still just a student generally, so I'm pretty well removed from from having to think about the law stuff so much, but I find it interesting for sure.
Well, just save your stuff. If you get that wonderful idea tonight, just start building your files.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I have like when I've thought of ideas before, I've like considered, oh, should I incorporate, I guess, or like when is it proper to incorporate, versus just rolling with the idea first for a while and then um, thinking about incorporation after.
Yeah, I mean, I lean towards the latter myself. I mean, if you just have an idea and you're kind of developing it slowly on your own, then um, you might not incorporate right away. But in general, you know, what you're looking at is creating a separate person, to think about it in that way, and building sort of a distance between yourself and that person, that is the corporation. So if the corporation ends up being sued, it's quite difficult to pierce the corporate veil, as we say. Not impossible, but quite difficult in most cases, and get at the nick, if you will, behind it. So I mean, but if you're starting to earn funds, then there are of course taxation issues with regard to incorporating, liability issues at a good distance, and then it's just sort of become also a badge, if you will, of professionalism. I mean,
Right.
you're dealing with someone who has a startup, and I want to see their corporate records, and they tell me, oh yeah, they're back in my garage at home. That's sort of already one kind of indication to myself, well, okay, that's interesting. You know, the corporate records we ask to review as a law firm each day tend to be held by another law firm. They tend to be kept up very well, and we can find out who all the different shareholders are, check out the minutes from all the different meetings. Certainly, it's a lot of hassle setting up a whole other person that we're calling a corporation, and you have to file tax returns for them. But if you plan on being a success with whatever thing you come up with, then it's a necessary step. Just trying to get back to my list of participants. If anyone's filing in to see if they can type me up another question. Don't be shy, people. Or otherwise, I have some other things to attend for sure.
Yeah. Maybe.
Alina, oh, I found it. Alina, do you have any questions? Let us know. Don't be shy. Nope. I've heard from Robert. How about Norman? Norman, do you have a legal question? It's funny, I used to teach, and I used to always, I used to have to teach the LSAT course, which is a course you have to take before you get into law school. And I always used to just pick on people like crazy in the class, face to face, and they would complain about it. And I say, well, but you're trying to go to law school. I mean, this is what's going to happen to you. You're going to end up being put on the spot by a judge. Someone's saying paper electronic contracts. What are my preferences as a lawyer? I don't really have a preference. I mean, the vast majority of contracts that I have seen in the last 20 years were paper, signed with a pen. Can they be signed electronically? Certainly, as long as they're done properly. And, you know, there's 100 different ways of properly, but there's a lot of great software out there now allowing for people to sign them, especially virtually given the pandemic. But assign an unbreakable encryption or indication of who signed it, when they signed it, maybe even where they signed it. So as long as it meets that obligation, that's fine. If the software also allows for, you know, some ability to ensure that what you're signing is encapsulated, be it a 1-page contract or a 100-page contract, that is good. The question from Robert was, you know, I mentioned signing each page. That's the sort of traditional approach, is initialing each page in the corner, both people who are signing, or both companies who are signing the contract, signing the contract at the appropriate page and having it witnessed. That's sort of the traditional point of view. It solidifies for myself and perhaps a judge down the road that this person signed it then, and they agreed to each single page or each single handwritten change. But of course, as Robert knows, that can be done electronically with a lot of the new tech that's out there as well.
We have a question here from Norman, asking if we could talk if you could talk a little bit about patent protection.
Well, not every lawyer will be able to give you everything, Norman, and that's what I come across a lot in my days. I'm on a floor here in a tower in Vancouver. I'm surrounded by lawyers, and a lot of us do very different things. I'm a litigator, so if you had a patent litigation issue that's headed for trial, I might get involved at that stage. But as far as registering the patent or best practices to regard to, I would refer you to someone else. You wouldn't go to the family doctor about your brain surgery issue or your heart surgery issue. And the same thing in law. We have many different kinds of lawyers with many different specializations. If you have something that you want to patent, then you should definitely speak to a patent lawyer. If you need to find one, you can call me and I can refer you to quite a few that I trust. It's not, people call me all the time and I don't charge them to chat with them. I'm an entrepreneur, as basically all lawyers are, trying to sell their expertise, trying to bring in more clients. And so we all have a web of networks within the legal community of people who we refer to, each other to. If you have a specific question, by all means, find me on the internet and send me an email, and we'll try to help you with your specific question. But as far as generalities of patents, depending on what you have on the go, maybe you need one. Depending on where you're selling it and where you're going to put out it, maybe you need more than one. Who should you work with? I have some ideas for you. Are you in the middle of a patent issue that could end up in litigation? I hope not. But if you think you have a problem, talk to counsel.
Awesome. I think that's it for the questions then, and we're 2 minutes left. So I think we should wrap it up.
Sure. Thanks, Nick. I'm gonna sign into some of the other great programs on this. Hope to see you guys next year. And if you have any questions or you missed anything or whatever, just feel free to send me a note, or after the thing, if a legal issue comes up, feel free to reach out. If I can't help you, I'll try to find you someone who can.